Hey, thanks for checking out Racket Stringing. Number one, let's look for the grommet and the headguard wear. So you want to check that out, right? Look at where the grommets touch the string. Inspect the frame for cracks or stress fractures. Is there anything that needs to be taken care of there? 5. Place plastic over the existing grip, secure it with a rubber band. I like to do this so that it not only keeps the germs away from you, but it also keeps the grip looking the exact same way. If a string dampener is in the strings, place it under that rubber band. That's one thing you can do with that. So with the dampeners, when I take them off, keep them on the racket, put them under that rubber band that you just secured around the grip. The reason is so that it doesn't get lost in your stringing tray. 7. Inspect where the knots are. Cut out the strings using the proper method. Okay, make sure that you cut out the string, that you're not creating too much stress on the racket, because if you're all cutting in one side, then it's going to create more stress on the other part of the racket. So, start at the middle and work your way out evenly. Clean off any residue on the frame. Sometimes I'll have a little bit of like rubbing alcohol in a smooth cloth, and I'll just put a little bit on there and just kind of rub around and gets any residue, any wear marks, anything like that. Because you want to leave, you want to give the racket back better than you got it, right? People appreciate you cleaning the racket. Okay, then things here. Carefully secure the frame. Make sure it's not too tight, too loose. If it's too loose, you can potentially damage the frame when you start pulling tension on some of the strings. And make sure you have a protective surface between the machine and the racket. Sometimes you might just have a piece of hard plastic between there or nothing. And so you want to make sure either a little piece of leather or you can create some other kind of little pad that you can put between that, because ultimately when you're securing that, sometimes it leaves a little mark. So you want to make sure you don't scratch the frame. If somebody has a new frame, they're going to notice that there's a little mark on there pretty easily. Keep the butt cap logo facing up. Whenever I string a racket, I always make sure that the butt cap is facing up. That way I'm always stringing the racket the same way, because I'll do the short side on one side, I'll do the long side on another. That way I keep that consistency, and then I don't have to worry about when the racket comes in again, about stringing on the opposite side. So make sure that the clamps are clean, and any residue off of them from any previous stringings. Many of the synthetics and multi-filaments have some residue on there, and sometimes a little bit oily or whatever the case may be. And then you come to a new set of strings, and especially if it's like gut or something else, and then the first pull, boom, you just ruined your string because it slipped through there. So make sure that you get this all taken care of ahead of time. A little bit of rubbing alcohol. There's other materials you can use as well, and adjust the clamps and, to the string gauge if needed. So if you just strung with a 15 light and now you're going to a 17 gauge, keep that aware, kind of that you might have to make a little bit of adjustment. So I'll take the string, put it through there, kind of carefully clamp it. Keep the clamp bases clean and wax the bases for easy sliding of the bar. Usually I'll have like a little wax bar that a little wax stick that I'll put on the glide bars, and then I'll clean that off, the residue off, and then they're nice and smooth. Use a starting clamp before your machine clamp to secure the mains before pulling your first string. Okay, this eliminates any kind of slippage. So when you're using your clamps, you're going to put a starting clamp behind it, so that way when you pull the string, if by chance there was a little bit of slippage possibly going through your regular clamp, the starting clamp will stop it before it has a chance to slip. Bracket. Have your tools out clean and ready to go. Make sure you have everything there. That'll save time. Next one, clamp each string near the frame and the grommets. Okay, that also because many times if you have half an inch or an inch between the clamp and the frame, later on when you pull that next string around, there's a potential where you could lose a little bit of tension in your racket stringing. So make sure you get as close to the clamps as close to the grommets as you can when you're clamping. Okay, measure the short side before securing the first string. When pulling strings through holes already occupied, be careful not to burn the string. When you tie off with hybrids, tie off on the same type of string. Enlarge the holes as needed. Make sure you cut a sharp tip at the end of your string before installing strings. This creates a lot of, that way you don't have the headache later on if always trying to push that string through when there's a little bit of resistance. Watch for crossovers on the outside of the frame. So if there's any opportunity where you're crossing over on the string, make sure that it's up above and it doesn't end up crossing over on the outside, because that's sloppy and it doesn't look professional. Measure your string accurately and double check before pulling the first main. So what you can do is, that way you don't have too much string and you're not pulling too much through the mains. Should you think about pre-stretching? Did you offer that? Leave one cross ahead and reduce the amount you rotate the racket on the machine. So make sure when you're you put the string through on a cross, don't secure it, put another one through, then turn the racket, then pull it, and just always do that. That way you don't have as many movements, because every time you're making the movement, it's taking you a little bit extra time. Hold the end of the string or put it in the racket so that you don't always have to find the end of the string, because I've seen many times you put one through and then you're pulling and you've let go of the string. Now you got to find the end again and reel it back in, do the same thing, and that just takes a lot of extra time. So the whole thing is you're trying to do this in a less amount of time than you did before, trying to learn from getting quicker. And this is some of these things are time-saving tips, right? Pre-weave the mains before pulling the first string. Use a secure knot and don't use the machine to pull the knot tight. Never use a machine to pull the knot. Number one, you're pulling on the frame, and then you're also pulling at angles that could potentially damage the string. Use a starting clamp as a connector if your string is too short. Many times, maybe you're like that short and you can't get the last string in the machine to pull the last main. You're going to use a starting clamp, and then you're going to get another piece of string, and then you're going to put that on one end, and then you're going to kind of use that to give you a little bit extra string so that you can secure that last string. So I've had that happen many times. And use a starting clamp to secure the tie-off knot. Many times I'll use a starting clamp instead of another tool to like grab the string, and then as I'm pulling, because the starting clamp is not going to slip out of there. So last couple things, post-stringing tips. Educate your customer about new strings. Keep them safe from the elements. Make sure you tell your customer, hey, this is a new string job, especially if it's gut or something else with the elements. If it's cold climates, hot climates, you just got to make sure that they know, hey, you leave your racket in your car, you're going to be prone to having more tension loss a lot quicker. Discuss the string wear and breakage. Discuss what could potentially happen. Record all the stringing information on file as far as the date, string gauge, what kind of string machine did you use, who was a stringer, what's the tension, what type of racket. If a player has more than one racket, make sure that you have it numbered somehow so you know which of the rackets it was that you strung. Use a string tension meter to check your tension. Have a reference number, write that down. It's a good way to add some added value. The customer have them come back in a couple weeks, and you can check the tension and see what percentage that it's lost, right? So those are some of the tips. I hope you found something in there of value. Please make sure you leave a comment if you have some additional tips. All right, that's it for today. Have a great day. Thanks.